Hello, and welcome to the Gifted Education presentation for the District 70 in-service today, Friday, November 13th, 2015. My name is Natalie Brown, and I am your district's Gifted Education Consultant. You can reach me through district email at nbrown@district70.org, or you can reach me via my cell, which is listed here. For this presentation today, I do have to have a disclaimer. This information that is being provided to you in this presentation with the purpose of informing you of recent updates and changes to gifted education in the state of Colorado. By viewing this information, you as a participant have not been formally trained in gifted identification and are not able per law 12.022 CVI to be the trained representative in making final decisions on gifted identification and programming. The purpose of this is to really make sure that you are aware of the components because you are going to be a team member, possibly on review teams, and you need to be aware of this information. Rest assured you have someone in your building who has gone through formal CDE training to become trained in gifted identifications, and they're the ones who have to be on every team decision in looking at potential gifted students to make decisions on whether they are identified or not in gifted, as well as what their programming looks like. Our objectives for today are to provide you, the general education teacher, or the district support staff with information regarding the new gifted identification criteria and basically what is all involved in the collecting a body of evidence on your part. In addition, looking at the new ECEA rules and regulations, aka the Colorado laws, in regards to talent pool, portability, universal screening, advanced learning plans, and much more. We're also going to just talk about roles and responsibilities, and last but not least, I'm going to go over programming options that you may already have in place at your school or possibly things to consider. Everything that I'll be sharing with you is evidence-based and research-based, so that if you're unsure of what you are doing or want to know more about other things, please know that I plan on providing more professional development around this area for our district. The state of Colorado has a current coding system for gifted ed, and this has been in place for quite some time. The problem with this coding system is it doesn't actually align with the law because there are several categories that a student can be identified gifted, but unfortunately the coding system is not delegated in the same way. The current coding system shows 0 for not gifted, 1 being language arts gifted, 2 for mathematics gifted, 3 being language arts and math gifted, and 4 being other gifted. This is all going to change. We are in a year of transition. So by next fall, effective October 1, 2016, there will be a new coding system that will actually align with the law, and it will represent each of the areas and be able to mark our students that are gifted in one or more areas, specifically what areas those are in. The coding system change is going to happen within the state, and then once the state makes the change, Alpine Achievement is also going to update their platform to reflect this as well. In this year of transition, we are doing our best just to make sure that we have everything coded correctly, and your GT representatives are working diligently hard on the students that are already identified and making sure that they have the correct coding for future entry, and then also looking at new referral students under that same lens. The new gifted identification area, and when I say new, I'm kind of being a little facetious with this. It's not necessarily that these are new categories. In fact, it's just the way that they are actually worded. All of these are pretty much the categories that have been in law for quite some time. But the coding system is going to be based off these new areas here. So the first one is general or specific intellectual ability. The next one is specific academic aptitude with cognitive. There's also an option to do without cognitive. The same areas apply for both of these: reading, writing, mathematics, science, social studies, and or world language, or combination of for students. Last but not least, a specific talent aptitude: visual arts, performing arts, musical abilities, dance, psychomotor abilities, creative or productive thinking, and or leadership abilities. Again, a student may qualify in gifted for one or more areas across the board here. There are multiple pathways for reaching these identifications, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Please be aware that the state requires a full body of evidence for each of these, and it's very specific. We are looking at students scoring at the 95th percentile or above, or they must have an advanced distinguished ratings dependent upon if it's a normed reference assessment or a criterion reference assessment. Some key points before we dive right into identification that I just want you all to be aware of is that Colorado Department of Education does require that we are identifying students between the ages of 5 to 21. There is no reason why we can't look at kiddos even in the high school range for identification, but also keep in mind this begins clear down in kindergarten. We don't wait until testing is available for the state assessment to start looking at students. We look at students right from the beginning, the get-go of when they're in school. Possibly this even might include some of our preschool kiddos. Students who are English learners, special education students, students on 504 plans, students from underrepresented populations, etc., are to be included in all universal screenings and reviewed at all times. Just because they have other plans does not mean it limits them from being able to be looked at as gifted. In fact, there's an area called Twice Exceptional that is actually for students that have both an IEP and an advanced learning plan, and there's additional trainings and things that go on throughout the state for this specific area, and we have that in place within our district. Also, once we identify students, by law, we are required to actually provide them individual programming to meet their students' achievement and effective needs. So we really have to be aware of that. We can't just slap a label on them and do nothing. We actually have to provide them something, and it's part of our Unified Improvement Plan, and we are rated now through the evaluation system, both as the district and individually as teachers, to really be targeting this student population heavily because it's been overlooked across the state for several years. One of the areas that I wanted to share with you is the area for general or specific intellectual ability. Students may qualify in this area of general intellectual ability with a score at the 95th percentile on or above on one or more batteries of intellectual ability assessment. Within our district, we provide the COGAT, and the COGAT actually has 3 batteries: verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative, and so a student can qualify again on one or more of those batteries, but their scores have to be at the 95th percentile. A gifted determination based solely on cognitive assessment score without any other qualifying data is the exception. A review team should use their professional judgment to determine if identification is appropriate for examining supplemental or non-traditional information collected through interviews, observation skills, inventories, performances beyond the academic content areas. Students from underrepresented populations may not demonstrate gifted abilities through the use of traditional achievement data. When only cognitive ability assessment data meets the criteria in a body of evidence at the 95th percentile or above, the review team may determine that the student is identified with general or specific intellectual ability. This meets portability requirements, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Another area is specific academic aptitude with cognitive, and so I'm going to go over that one first. Content areas for specific academic aptitude include reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and/or world language. There are 2 pathways that lead to identification in this area specifically. First, a student may score at the 95th percentile on or above more than one of the batteries, and then they must have a combination of 2 specific areas below, whether that be a criterion and norm reference achievement test, norm reference observation scale, which is the GES3, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. There's an extra video about that, or performance evaluation. The other pathway is without cognitive. A student may not score at the 95th percentile on a cognitive test. However, a review team may determine a comprehensive body of evidence demonstrates gifted academic ability. Content-specific measurement tools to meet criteria for identification should include at least 3 or more of the measures from below. When cognitive data does not meet the gifted criteria, identification of specific academic aptitude requires an examination of multiple data points and trends over time. So it's not just a one score, one moment in time. We have to see this multiple times throughout a student's educational career that actually demonstrates and supports this. So for example, a student can't just score third grade advanced in math one time and be identified gifted. We have to have more to the body of evidence to back that up and support that. The last but not least area is specific talent aptitude. Identification in the talent domains requires the examination of a variety of instruments and multiple pathways that lead to identification. Talent domains include visual arts, performing arts, music, dance, psychomotor, creativity, and leadership. Often criteria or normed reference assessments are not available in talent areas. Therefore, performance evaluation is an important component of the body of evidence. If data from a valid and reliable test are not available to demonstrate exceptional ability, two or more indicators in the performance area may be used to meet identification criteria, along with exceptional ratings on a normed reference observational scale. Identification in the area of psychomotor is designated for national level athletes who require programming accommodations to address the number of school days they might miss during the training or competitions. Districts are not required to provide or financially support athletic coaching, training, or competitions for students identified in the area of psychomotor. So that gives you some of the ideas. Your gifted education representative has more information on all of this and can guide you a little bit further as you examine it. All of this can be found also on CE's website under Gifted Ed. There are two videos that I'd like you to watch. One is on the Gifted Evaluation Scale. The other one is in the Gifted Education Planner. You can choose to put this video on pause and watch both of those now, or you may watch those at the end. Roles and responsibilities. Within District 70, there are several roles. All of these abide by the ECA rules and regulations. Some of these are just district decisions. Please be aware that all of these have to be followed. First, all advanced learning plans for this current school year, 2015-2016, must be completed by December 1. Your gifted education representatives, your school, have already been made aware of this and are working already towards that. This is going to be done annually in Alpine from this point forward, and auditing internally will happen in the spring semester. The only exception to this is for new students or referrals that come in after December 1. Any new student referral per the ECEA rules must be completed within 30 school days after referral to determine whether a student will continue with formal identification or designated to a talent pool designation. An ALP has to be completed 30 days from any identification determination. Any new in-state gifted student to Pueblo School District 70 requires that the school follow the rules on portability with review of the ALP within 45 school days of the start date to determine programming options and services that serve the identified areas according to our district resources. Any revisions to the ALP will be made within this time designation. Any new out-of-state gifted student to District 70 requires the school to determine if the body of evidence supports Colorado's gifted identification criteria. If the determination of the team is yes, we have 45 school days to determine that and determine programming and services, etc. Any revisions to the ALP has to be made during this time. If the answer is no, we must begin collecting that body of evidence and look at the student over time for the referral. Personnel assigned to developing the ALP. This is a crucial change that you all need to be aware of. At least one person trained or endorsed in gifted identification and programming must be on the review team at all times. At minimal, the student's parent and classroom teacher, should be familiar with and supporting ALP goals and or write ALP measurable goals. Gifted education resource personnel may assist in the writing of goals, but this is key, may not be the sole custodian of the ALP. So what that means is the gifted education representative in your school is not the only person who writes this and is the only person who follows up on it. general education teachers are very liable for the information pertained in that ALP, and goals are written and aligned with classroom tiered instruction, expanded learning opportunities for supplemental or intensive programming. So it's a team effort, so be aware of that. All gifted students must be aware and active in the ALP process at some way or component. ALPs need to be managed in a cumulative file system, including transfer between grade levels, schools, levels, and districts. Therefore, once the ALP is finalized or updated at any point, a copy of it needs to go into their CUME file so that it can travel with them. An ALP progress report timeline should integrate with ongoing conferences and reporting times of our district. It is highly encouraged that ALPs be student-led at the secondary level. Evidence of parent engagement and input on the ALP development and the review of progress is required by ECEA. Evidence may include, but is not limited to, a signature, electronic signature, checkbox of involvement, checklist, or other assurances supporting the student's growth. If after 3 attempts in contacting the parent there's no return, and there is no signature, the personnel at the school can continue with ALP implementation and continue to try to engage those parents. So be aware of all of this as we're moving forward. Please be aware that there are several more changes to the rules, and I don't have the time to go over all of these with you, but if you would like, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of the new rules, and then they're actually highlighted in the copy that I can provide you that go over all of the new changes. Some, it just is completely a new rule altogether, and some is just the wording has been changed or updated. There are specific areas and rules that I do want to bring to your attention, though, because this does impact you as being support staff in the district or general education teacher. After October 1st of 2016, the new rule for ECEA requires that a student who moves from one district in Colorado to another district in Colorado retains his or her gifted identification. Students that come from outside of Colorado, they do not fit within this portability law. This does mean that we have to automatically accept them, but what it doesn't mean is that we have to provide them the same programming that they've been receiving from the previous district. We have to determine what programming we can provide within our district to meet the students' achievement and effective needs. Universal screening means a systematic assessment of all students within a grade level for identifying students with exceptional ability or potential, especially students from traditional underrepresented populations, and/or screening in conjunction with creation of each student's individual career or academic plan. For our district, we are required to do this as well as everyone else in the state, but there is grant funding that we have received in addition to the general funding that we get for gifted ed, even though both are quite limited. The grant funding provides our district at this time to screen all second grade students. The state actually determined that we have to screen either second grade or 7th grade, and so our district's decision at this time was to start with second grade. For the assessment, we do use the COGAP because it is a cognitive assessment. We already have other achievement assessments already in place, such as the state test as well as NWEA, so we felt that this was the best way to address the other area, which is the cognitive ability. The body of evidence for some students may not lead to formal gifted identification, but the data may demonstrate that the student should be included in a talent pool. For our district, our talent pool considers scores between the 90th to the 94th percentile. If we do deem a student in the talent pool category, we must provide programming, but they are not on a formal ALP, nor do they have formal identification. It is defined as a group of student who demonstrates advanced or even exceptional ability in a particular area, but at this time they just don't meet that gifted criteria for identification. Often students in a talent pool who are provided the programming are able to go ahead and present with challenge and rigor, can increase their achievement, and they may qualify at a later time, which is why we have a talent pool. Not all students should belong in this. It has to be a team decision. Again, to summarize, this year starting, all ALPs are due for current students by December 1. Exception does include of new students and or referrals. Students have to be in participation and they have to be active either in their ALP or in programming. ALPs have to be in their CUME file and they must be able to transfer with the student no matter where the student goes. We again have to make sure that we are providing district reporting for the ALP at the same time that we're providing quarterly grades or semester grades. And also we have to show evidence of parent input. So this leads us to what we do once we identify students. Well, we have to provide programming. There are several programming options. Several of these are already done currently in the district, and some of these are new. The biggest one is that our state has taken on a 5-year initiative plan for depth and complexity. Some individuals in our district have already gone through training for this, and more training will be rolled out in this state during this current year and ongoing for depth and complexity. There's also differentiation of instruction, integrated curriculum model, parallel curriculum model, school-wide enrichment model, and the autonomous learner model. Programming evidence-based instructional practices and strategies that we should be using or you might already be using in your school include acceleration, and this might be done even in a content area or whole grade acceleration. If it is a whole grade acceleration, Ginger and Danuccio does have to be a part of that conversation and decision. It cannot just be made directly within the review team. Creative thinking, intervention, critical thinking and reasoning, curriculum compacting, flexible pacing, independent study work in the area of passion, inquiry-based learning, likability grouping or cluster grouping, problem-based learning, social emotional development, tiered assignments, Socratic questioning, habits of the mind, thinking maps, flexible grouping, community enrichment, mentorships, challenge beyond AP and or IB, and concurrent enrollment. All of these are research-based that show that students who receive this type of programming or gifted strategies really do show academic achievement and effective achievement growth. So please be aware of all of these, and there will be more trainings coming up for each of these and more information later. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact your school gifted education representative and or myself. If contacting me, please use email because it is the best method in reaching me. And thank you so much for your time today.